What's up, everybody? So we're out in the shop with another Shop Talk Tuesday, and in this episode we're going to take these handle scales that we worked on in the last episode of the Shop Talk Tuesdays and this big old chopper, and we're going to put these scales on this handle. Now, in the last episode we got these fully prepped, ready to go. We got the tang fully prepped, flattened, ready to go. Now we're going to focus just on the more or less attaching of handle scales to a tang in this episode, but all of the process that goes into that. It's not just, well, drill some holes, slap these on there, glue it up, and it's done. Nope, you got to do some steps. In order for these to fit how they're supposed to fit, we need to take it, put it on here, drill the pinholes, and make sure that we're drilling them exactly where they need to be so we're not ending up with gaps around our pins. Then we've got to cut out the scales. Go ahead and get them cut out. And then we need to profile this front edge. So put a bevel on it, whatever we're going to do to the front of this. Profile it. And then we need to hand sand it. And me, I go as far as buffing it so that that whole area that meets the ricasso area is finished, because once you attach the scales to this, there's no hand sand in that area anymore or doing any finish work there, because you're going to risk messing up the finish on your blade itself. You don't want to do that. So we need to do all the finish work before they even get attached. So we profile, hand sand, buff if you want to, and then we need to go ahead and do one extra step before we attach them. Once I get everything set up, I need to go and actually remove some material so that this piece right here is a little bit thinner than the area down here, because we have a tapered tang. This area right here is thicker than this area right here. Now if I was to put this on here, drill straight through, and then I didn't end up tapering this area to match this particular taper right here, if I didn't do that, what would happen is, we're going to drill straight through these scales. If I didn't remove that material, what ends up happening is you got your scales right here, your knife goes in between it, and they do this. But what ends up happening is a pin that's straight through right here gets kicked up, and now it's at an angle. So you've got a pin that's curved like this. A stainless steel pin that's only this long is not going to curve. So what you're going to end up doing is fighting yourself and fighting your scales to make that work out whenever you try and pinch it together, and you're going to risk cracking your scales or just ruining it altogether. So you need to remove that material so that whenever you put that knife on there, the outer layers are parallel again and not opened up. So it'll probably make more sense whenever we actually get to that process, but that's something that we're going to be doing in this episode that's a little bit different than what I typically do, because most of my knives are not tapered tangs. So let's just drill it through, pretty simple, squaring everything up, putting everything on, and call it done. This one we happen to do just a little bit of extra step, and then once we get that done, we can do our glue up. All of that is going to be happening in this episode. That's why I said before, it might not seem like you could dedicate a whole entire episode to a glue up of scales onto a knife, but you need to do these particular steps, because if you don't, whenever someone looks at your knife up close, they're going to see all those missed steps and those skipped steps, and it's not going to be something that looks like it's professional quality. And that's always the goal whenever making knives. We want to push ourselves to the next step so that that quality goes with it. The better knife you make, the more you can ask for it. And if you want to do this as a little side income, you want to put out a better product so that people will give you a little bit more money for it to help with bills and inflation. So guys, let's go ahead, let's get over to the drill, and let's get the holes drilled through this, go from there. So one of the reasons why I use this little piece of wood underneath there, and every single time I drill through some scales, is so that I don't risk blowing out the back side of it and creating an issue for the area around the pinholes whenever I get done drilling them out. I don't want to have to fill anything with epoxy or CA glue or something like that to try and make it look like I didn't mess it up. I'd rather just do it right off the bat. We're using a 3/16 drill bit for these two holes, and then a 3/8 for the big lanyard hole there. So that is the pin sizes. So this is the type of fitment that we want when we get done drilling our holes. We want them to be nice and tight around these pins, the lanyard tube on both sides, nice tight all the way around there, so whenever you get done shaping your handle and everything just looks like it was meant to be there, and it almost looks like a machine finished. That's what we're going for. We don't want little gaps and stuff like that around this, or we had to waller it out. We want to be able to take and push these pins easily in and out of this whenever we're all done with it. So whenever I go through and cut this out, I of course want to make sure that I'm cutting pretty close to the line but not all the way on it, because as I start flexing this and cutting around, it's going to start flexing this band because there's a big gap between where the base is, so the bottom set of bearings that this rolls on, and the top one that's up here. So this belt and this band can get a really good amount of flex in it. And if I start cranking on that, what it's going to do is it's going to slowly work its way this way, and if I stayed on this line right here, I have a chance that whenever I get to this side, it's going to be too thin on the outer side and it's going to taper. So this side of the scales would be smaller than this side. So you just want to make sure that you're not, really cranking on this. We want to cut chunks off, and then we can use the 2x72 with a 36 grit belt to kind of fine tune it. So it's one of the things that I would just suggest, so you're not risking wasting a whole entire set of scales, especially something that's as awesome as this. So I want to show you this before I go any further. So right now, you see that gap of light right there? That is how much space we have between this pin up front being even, this pin in the back being even. I cannot get this one in there. If I was to pinch this like that, it's flexing the scales. And now that hole right there won't line up because it's at a different angle. So we need to remove the material from the front here to make it to where whenever I push all these pins through, they all line up exactly how they need to line up. Now the cool thing is I've only really got to take about a 1/16 of an inch off of the front here, so taper it back just a little bit. It's going to be almost nothing, but it's going to be enough to make it to where everything goes in evenly, and you're going to see the difference because, like I said, I can't even push this pin through the tang itself because of how contorted everything is. But we're going to go ahead and grind this a little bit, and then you'll see how much easier everything goes together. So now that we have everything fit exactly how we want it, nice and tight, pins fit in there easily, we want to go ahead, take this apart, put it in the vise, and start sanding on the fronts here. Get this put in here. Okay, so typically I go through and do a bevel on either side of these, so a bevel on this scale, bevel on this scale, and then I kind of round it over. On this one I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it flat on the front, which is kind of weird for me because I typically don't do that. But because of the way I'm going to be profiling the handle, and I'm going to come down pretty thin towards the front, it's unnecessary for me to put an angle on that because it's going to be such a small section. Because I am going to go pretty thin on the area up here because this is already thick as it is. It's a 1/4 of an inch thick. I'm not trying to have a super wide handle. It's already comfortable as it is even without scales on it, so I don't need anything super big. But it's going to be a little bit beefier in the back section because this tapers, but it'll look really cool whenever y'all see the profiling. But right now we need to go through the sand grits on this. We're going to start with 220 and go all the way up to 800, and then I'm going to buff it, and then we'll go ahead and start attaching the scales to the knife. Look at that grain. Just beautiful. So at this point, what I've done is went ahead and cleaned all the surfaces that are going to touch each other, the tang, the scales, the pins, all of that, so that they're free of any oil or anything. Now I've got my 2-part epoxy right here. This is the resin, this is the hardener. We're going to get that mixed up, get everything glued up, use some various different clamps to get everything where it needs to be. As I start clamping this, I'm not going to be applying too much pressure. Just enough pressure to make sure everything comes together, but not so much that I squeeze all of the epoxy out. So let's go ahead and start this glue up. now we just want to go through and clean off the excess epoxy on the front of the ricasso area. Now we're good. It's nice and tight all the way around, and everything fit how it's supposed to fit. Now we'll just let that sit overnight and harden. And then the cool thing about this is, well, I'll talk about that when we get up here. I'm gonna go ahead and bring y'all up and we'll finish the outro at this point. Alright guys, let's go ahead and wrap this Shop Talk Tuesday up here. We've got it all clamped up. Everything's ready to cure overnight. Now the cool thing is, this showed y'all the different steps that you got to think through in order to make sure your handle fits exactly how it's supposed to on your tang, so you don't have those weird gaps or anything like that. Now in the next week's Shop Talk Tuesday, we're going to shape and hand sand the handle, put an edge on it, and cut some stuff with it. So this build will be done next week. Now, I say done, the week after that we're going to go ahead and make a sheath for it and talk about the next Shop Talk Tuesday build series. I think y'all are really going to like it. I think that y'all are going to love it. I'm just going to throw it out there. You are. I was originally going to give y'all the option for which thing I was going to end up building, but I think you're going to want this. I think y'all are going to absolutely want to see this build. So I'm going to have that. It's going to have some different processes that I've never done before. So it's going to be an absolute blast. Now, we're almost at 25,000 subscribers. As soon as we hit that, I'm giving away that knife. I'll tell y'all about that in an episode once we hit it. And it's, you know, very, very simple to enter into that giveaway. I'll talk about it when we hit that point. But guys, that's the end of this one. If y'all would, remember, vote for my buoy, okay? Vote for the Quran buoy. If you haven't voted yet, I'm going to leave a link for it in the description below and in the comment section. Make sure y'all vote for that. I would love to win that particular competition. There you go. Guys, thank y'all for coming by. If y'all would, give this video a thumbs up, share this video, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't yet, hopefully you have at this point. Y'all have an amazing day. Y'all stay safe out there. I'll catch y'all next time.